They didn't ask. They didn't hesitate. They simply took what they believed could never belong to him. Jordan Miles had been sitting quietly in the VIP section of the Grand Meridian Gala, surrounded by people who loved noise more than substance. He wasn't trying to stand out. His dark suit was tailored but simple. No flashy watch. No loud laughter. Just a man reading notes on his phone, while the orchestra played for people who barely noticed the music. That was when Whitney Harrington stopped in front of him. She stared at Jordan the way someone looks at a misplaced object, confused, irritated, offended by its existence. Behind her stood her husband, Bradley, already smirking, already certain this would be easy. "You're in our seats," Whitney said, her voice dripping with entitlement. Jordan looked up calmly. "This is my assigned place." Bradley laughed and picked up the place card. "JM? No full name? Cute trick." He waved it like proof. "You probably grabbed this from another table." Whitney didn't even look at Jordan anymore. She snapped her fingers at a passing server. "Can you fix this?" He wandered into the wrong section. Jordan felt eyes turning toward him. Curious, amused, judgmental. He stayed seated. "I'm not moving," he said quietly. That's when the mood changed. Bradley leaned closer, lowering his voice like a threat wrapped in a joke. "Don't make this awkward. People like you don't sit here." A few nearby guests laughed. Phones lifted. Someone whispered, "Is this being recorded?" Whitney crossed her arms. "Security," she called out, loud enough for half the room to hear. "This man is refusing to leave." Jordan felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. Not fear, but recognition. He'd seen this before. Not here. Not like this. But he knew where it led. Two guards began moving toward him. And Jordan realized something important. They had already decided who he was and what he deserved. And in moments, they were about to prove just how wrong they were. As security reached for him, Jordan finally stood, and the room held its breath. The guards didn't ask questions. One of them grabbed Jordan's arm. Firm, automatic, as if this was routine. "Sir, you'll need to step away from the table," the guard said. Jordan's voice remained steady. "I belong here." Bradley scoffed. "Yeah? Then prove it. Or go to your job and get a champagne." The laughter grew louder. Not everyone laughed, but no one spoke up. Silence filled the gaps where courage should have been. Whitney stepped forward and shoved the chair back herself. "Enough. You're embarrassing yourself." When Jordan didn't move fast enough for her liking, she grabbed his jacket and pulled. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones came up higher now. Not discreet anymore. This wasn't confusion. It was entertainment. Jordan stumbled but caught himself. He straightened slowly, adjusting his jacket with deliberate calm. His face didn't show anger. That unsettled him more than shouting ever could. "You're making a mistake," he said softly. Whitney laughed. "The only mistake was letting you inside." The guards tightened their grip. One twisted Jordan's arm behind his back. That was the moment the humiliation became real. A man who had built empires was being treated like a trespasser in a room his company paid for. And the crowd watched. Some eagerly, some uncomfortably, but still watched. Jordan's eyes scanned the ballroom. The chandeliers, the banners, the logo projected behind the stage. Meridian Industries, his company. Bradley leaned close enough for Jordan to smell the alcohol on his breath. "You should have stayed invisible." Then, from the far end of the room, a voice cut through the chaos. Sharp, commanding, terrified. "Stop. Right now." The music died instantly. Every head turned toward the stage. The chairman of Meridian Industries was rushing forward, face pale, panic written all over him. "What do you think you're doing?" the man shouted. The guards froze. Jordan slowly turned, and the room began to understand that something had gone terribly wrong. The chairman stared at Jordan, and his voice cracked as he said the name that changed everything. "Unhand, Mr. Miles." Immediately, the words hit the ballroom like a dropped glass, sharp, loud, impossible to ignore. The guards released Jordan so fast, it looked like fear had shocked their muscles. One even stepped back, eyes wide. Whitney frowned. "Mr. Who?" Jordan adjusted his jacket again. calm as ever. The chairman reached him, breathing hard. "Jordan Miles," he said, voice trembling. "What on earth is going on?" Cameras swung toward Jordan like magnets. Whispers exploded. "That's him." "No way." "Isn't he?" The chairman turned to the crowd, trying to regain control. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, swallowing, "I want to formally introduce our new chief executive officer, majority shareholder of Meridian Industries, Jordan Miles." The room went silent. Not polite silence. Not respectful silence. Shock. Bradley's smile collapsed. Whitney's face drained of color. Someone dropped a phone. It cracked loudly on the marble floor. Jordan looked at the couple, his expression unreadable. "You decided I didn't belong," he said evenly, "not because of my seat, but because of your assumptions." Whitney's mouth opened and closed. We didn't know." Jordan nodded once. "Exactly." The chairman wiped sweat from his forehead. "They put their hands on you?" Jordan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth was written across the room, in the footage being recorded, in the faces of those who laughed, in the sudden fear settling into the air. Bradley stepped forward, forcing a shaky chuckle. "This is all just a misunderstanding." Jordan finally stepped closer. "You humiliated a man you believed had no power." He turned toward security. "Escort them." Whitney gasped. "Escort us where?" Jordan's voice was ice. "To accountability." And for the first time that night, the powerful realized they were powerless. As security closed in on the couple, Whitney screamed the one thing she believed could still save them. "You can't do this." Whitney cried, "My father is on the board." The words echoed through the ballroom, desperate and sharp. Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look impressed. "I own the board." That was when Bradley broke. He grabbed Jordan's sleeve, dropping to his knees, so suddenly the crowd gasped again. "Please," he begged, "this will ruin us." Jordan gently pulled his arm free. "You ruined yourselves." The chairman spoke quickly, trying to restore order. Effective immediately, both individuals are terminated pending investigation for misconduct. Security lifted Bradley to his feet. Whitney struggled, her composure fully shattered now. "Delete the videos," she screamed at the crowd. "Stop recording." No one listened. This was no longer entertainment. This was history, and everyone knew it. Jordan turned to the tables nearby. "You laughed," he said calmly. "Some of you recorded. Others stayed silent. That choice matters." Several people looked away. Shame spread faster than the whispers earlier. As the couple was dragged toward the exit, Whitney screamed insults, then apologies, then threats, each weaker than the last. The doors closed behind them. Jordan stood alone in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by people who now saw him clearly and saw themselves just as clearly. He walked toward the stage. Every step was measured, controlled, heavy with meaning. The orchestra remained silent. Jordan took the podium and looked out at the room that had mocked him minutes earlier. "When arrogance decides who belongs," he said, "dignity dies." No one interrupted. "And when people choose comfort over courage," he continued, "they become complicit." The words landed hard. Jordan paused, letting the truth settle. "This company will change," he said, "starting tonight." The crowd waited, uncertain, afraid, attentive. Jordan's next word would decide who stayed and who would quietly disappear next. Jordan's eyes moved slowly across the room. "If you believe leadership has a look," he said, "you don't belong here." A sharp inhale rippled through the audience. "If you believe wealth excuses cruelty," he continued, "you don't belong here." People shifted in their seats. Some stood straighter. Others shrank. "And if you saw injustice tonight and chose silence," Jordan said, "you need to decide who you are before this company decides for you." No applause. No cheers. Just truth. Jordan leaned slightly forward. Meridian Industries will no longer protect arrogance. It will not reward entitlement. And it will not tolerate disrespect, no matter the last name. The chairman nodded solemnly beside him. Jordan straightened. "This is not about punishment," he said. "It's about standards." He stepped away from the podium. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, people stood, not clapping yet, just standing. Recognition replaced fear. The orchestra resumed softly. Jordan returned to his seat, the same one they tried to take. No one challenged him now. Across the room, conversations had changed. Voices were quieter, eyes more careful. Outside, cameras followed the disgraced couple into the night. Their collapse complete. Inside, Jordan sat calmly, reviewing his notes again. Nothing about him had changed. Only the room had. And everyone there knew one thing for certain. They would never forget this night. For Jordan, this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The gala ended differently than it began. There was no bragging now. No careless laughter. The illusion of untouchable power had cracked, and everyone felt it. Jordan stayed until the end. He spoke to no one unnecessarily. He didn't need validation. As guests filtered out, many avoided his eyes. A few nodded respectfully. Some whispered apologies that came too late. Jordan didn't chase forgiveness. He believed in consequences. The next morning, the video flooded the internet. Not as a joke, not as gossip, as a lesson. Careers collapsed overnight. Resignations followed. Investigations began. Meridian Industries released a statement announcing sweeping changes. And Jordan Miles became a symbol. Not because he sought it, but because the world needed it. A reminder: never assume power by appearance. Never confuse silence for weakness. And never try to erase a man who built the table you're sitting at. Because sometimes the seat you steal is the one that exposes you. And sometimes the quiet man you humiliate owns everything you stand on.